Good afternoon, and welcome to Conversations with Caregivers, a place for caregivers to get information and share their concerns. Hosted by the Nevada Caregivers Coalition, a statewide group of organizations, agencies, businesses, and individuals dedicated to supporting and recognizing the efforts of caregivers throughout Nevada. Today's topic, independent living options for children and youth with special health care needs, is the third and final event in a series highlighting services available to keep loved ones at home, as well as options for residential care in our community. I'm your host, Jane Gruner, sitting in for Mary Liverati, a longtime member of this coalition. Thank you to our sponsor for today's event, AARP. AARP is also a member of our coalition. Be sure to check out all their information and events on their website, aarp.org/Nevada. Every November, in celebration of National Family Caregivers Month, we host a recognition event to honor Nevada caregivers. We hope that you will join us for this year's event. We are planning an in-person event, a luncheon on Thursday, November 10th, from 11:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. at two locations, in Reno at the Atlantis Hotel and Casino, and in Las Vegas at Dignity Health, St. Rose Dominican San Martin campus. You can find all the details to register on our website, nvcaregiversassociation.com. That's nvcaregiversassociation.com. If you aren't familiar with our event, you can also see the highlights from last year's event on the website. We also welcome you to attend our monthly meetings the second Wednesday of each month from 11:30 to 12:30 p.m. on Zoom. Stay connected with us by liking our Facebook page and find out about our upcoming events by joining our mailing list. You can sign up through our website, NV Caregivers Association or nvcaregiverscoalition.com, or share your contact information in the chat. Now, before we get started, a few quick reminders. Please mute your microphone unless you're speaking. Feel free to use the chat for questions and comments. To save the chat, click on the three gray dots in the right-hand corner of the chat box and click on Save Chat. If you have trouble with your internet connection, leave the meeting and sign back in. If you have any other technical issues and need help, send a private chat to Marcia O'Malley, our meeting manager. Now, I'm pleased to introduce our moderator, Wendy Simmons, who describes herself as born and reared in the old folks' home by a family who pioneered the first housing for dependent and elderly care in the state of Nevada. Armed with 50 years of knowledge in both public and private sector experiences, she is a national and regional expert on assisted living and government relationship issues. Wendy was an owner, operator, and administrator of assisted living facilities for more than 30 years. She served as the Deputy Director of Wellness for the Nevada Department of Veterans Services, was Director of Assisted Living Development at the Nevada Healthcare Association, and was Bureau Chief of Healthcare Quality and Compliance for the state of Nevada. She has recently been appointed by Governor Sisolak to serve on the Nevada Commission on Aging. Welcome, Wendy. Thank you for moderating our event today.
Thanks so much, Jane. And I'm just delighted to be here today as your moderator. The topic that we have is near and dear to my heart in addition to aging, because part of my early childhood, my family also took care of learning disabled and behaviorally challenged children. So, you know, this strikes a chord of endearment to me and it is an honor to be with you today as your moderator. We have a panel of specialists who are going to really help us better understand what supported living options are available to children and youth with special healthcare needs at home and in the community. We all know more children with special healthcare needs and disabilities are living longer than they did in any time in history. And it poses a unique challenge to provide housing for these individuals while they're children, and even more so as they age into adulthood. We know there's no magic one size fits all. We don't pretend to have examples of all the options, but we hope to inspire you with several today with our panel. We had a preset discussion before we opened up today a few days ago, and oh my goodness, you are going to be so delighted to hear the stories and see the resources that you're being offered today. It's great expert advice from parents who have lived with the experience. Please don't be shy. Submit your questions in the chat box, but also if you need to raise your hand or just let us know that you would like to have more information on a topic from any of our wonderful 4 panelists. And then we'd like you to share your own tips with us and suggestions. This is meant to be interactive. It's not meant to be several talking heads presenting to you and now you have to just listen and no, we want that. We've got a small group. We've got 16 folks on this call. We really want it to be engaging. So I'm going to introduce our 4 panelists to you. Each of the panelists are going to be presenting for about 3 to 5 minutes. Our first panelist, as you can see to the left, is Mary Bryant, parent caregiver and former director to the Path of Independence program at the University of Nevada, Reno. Our second panelist is Cheryl Donnell, parent caregiver and executive director of the Nevada Lifespan Respite Care Coalition. Our third panelist is Marta Malone, parent caregiver and program officer and educational director for the Center for Healthy Aging. And our fourth panelist is Carol Matrone, parent caregiver and former family specialist for the state of Nevada's First Step program. So I'd like to now go ahead and move on with each of you presenting a little bit about your life story and your experience, just to open the conversation as we move forward with the conversation today. So Mary, please, do you want to begin the conversation for us? And folks, remember, raise your hand or put questions in the chat.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. And thanks, Marcia, for inviting me. My name is Mary Bryant. As she mentioned, I'm a mom to 2 daughters, Kaylin, who's almost 28, and Eilish, who's 26. Kaylin has Down syndrome and has been living on her own since about 2016. From the time she was very young, I really wanted her to be able to live independently, go to college, and have a good life. And so that's one of the reasons I started the Path to Independence program, so that Kaylin would have a place to go to college. And she did graduate from there, 2-year program, and has been working off and on ever since, worked all through there too. So as I said, she's been living away from home since 2016. First, she lived right near the university with a couple other P2I students. She's always gotten services from the regional center. She gets supported living arrangement services. So she always had someone coming in a couple days a week to help her with shopping and making sure the house was kept up and just anything that she needed to live independently. She's lived in several different places and she's lived with and without roommates. She really prefers without roommates. She likes her independence. She's always worked where she can walk to and from her house. So right now she works out at the Summit and lives in the apartments next to it. I consider that her life, her living arrangement so far has been successful, but there is risk for anyone in the community. which is really frightening because we want to protect our kids so much. In May of 2020, I got a text from her at 7:30 in the morning saying a man had sex with me and I could not stop him. So thus began a whole thing. She was raped in her home. She let someone in, and so we've been dealing with that. I went over there right away. Of course, she told me what happened. We called the police, who were excellent, and we moved her out of there right away. She was living on 11th Street. She came and lived at home with us for about 10 minutes. And then she was like, oh, I got to move out. So she has, even through that, she has wanted to be independent. And she learned a lot from it. She's been in counseling off and on since then, as well as like some musical therapy and art therapy, because some of the just talk therapy didn't. She said, I already told her what happened. Why do I have to keep going? So that made me look back at my decisions, of course, and say, oh my God, what was I thinking? What, I should have not let her be independent, but it's the life she loves. And there is extreme risk for any women living by themselves. And so, but she was willing to take that risk again so that she could live on her own. Currently, she lives at Innova, which are those really fancy schmancy apartments out by the Summit Mall. It is gated, but for some reason they have Section 8 out there, and she ended up getting it like $1,000 a month off her. It's usually $1,800 for one bedroom. She pays $800, and we feel better because it's gated. She now knows a lot more about not trusting people all the time, and she does get her SLA supports 2 to 3 days a week. Someone comes in and helps her with the food plan and shopping and banking, and we see her once or twice a week. We usually talk to her every day. So we are all real close, but it's been a journey, that's for sure. Thank you.
Wow, Mary, what an interesting story that you shared with us. And I know I've got some questions after we go through our other 3 panelists and introductions, but my compliments to you. And I'm hoping our other participants will bring forward some questions of how to handle what you shared with us, which was extremely important, that independence piece, and respecting that desire of independence. So our next panelist is Cheryl. Cheryl, would you mind sharing your story with us?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Cheryl Donnell. My husband and I have been thinking about how to tailor long-term supports for our son Eric for a long time, and trying to figure out the best way to meet his needs as we looked at the options available. And as we considered what that might look like, we would continually ask, what would that take? So right now, Eric is ambulatory, really strong, healthy, not on any daily meds, but has both visual and hearing impairments, and will likely lose his mobility as he gets older. We need to think of the older Eric as well. But top of the list, however, Eric is nonverbal, and communication is his biggest challenge. A lot of his behavior is simply communication, but sometimes it's seen as aggressive. He has good receptive language skills, but needs to be prompted to complete tasks. And while his independence is increasing, he often gets things confused. Like the other day, put dirty clothes, wet clothes from the washer, and dry clothes from the dryer all together in the laundry hamper, because that's where dirty, he's trying hard to help, but sometimes he gets things mixed up. And so we feel supervision is a must because he's nonverbal and can't always tell us what's wrong. We do worry about the risk of abuse at the hands of others. We also worry about handling health issues, emergencies, just accidents like dropping a dish and having it shatter on the floor. All challenges he can't handle by himself, or even know how he would call for help. He can be left alone for short periods of time, but regular monitoring will be needed. by someone who can guess, kind of figure out what's wrong in his world and help address it. And I think that means learning how Eric communicates, which is probably best gained by daily interaction with him, and having some good problem solving skills to see what could be challenging him for him. Like, his hearing aid battery is dropped on the floor or something, and offer calming solutions to address it. We are working with UNR speech pathology to see if you can use technology to communicate better, but it's not really a fix, it's an assist. And so as we looked at options for long-term care, we realized that the fewer changes made to Eric's environment and routine would be best. So who would we trust to be there for him in the future when we may not be? Friends and family topped the list. We decided to form a microboard, which is a small nonprofit organization set up to serve one client, in this case, Eric. The board of directors is made up of family and friends who care about him and want to be part of Eric's team now and in the future. My husband and I are also part of the team to help prepare the microboard group for taking over some of what we do for him and arranging continuing care in our absence. As a nonprofit, it can receive state funding for services that we may need for Eric. It can also provide what the state may not be able to provide, like property maintenance, for example. So far, it's been a blend of those services, state and non-state. The long-term care plan is to have a developmental support family move into our home because we would move out and take over the day-to-day supports that Eric needs. He would stay in place, and we've begun to make home modifications to create an apartment for Eric, separate from the rest of the house, so a developmental support family can feel like they have their own space. He has his own kitchen and accessible bathroom, and bit by bit we made changes so that his environment can age with him. So grab bars and a ramped entrance already in place. Who would that developmental support family be? We see plenty of options to consider, as we have nieces and nephews who have young children, young families. And right now, can you think of people who need an affordable place to live and raise their kids? Maybe even a single mom who might have trouble working enough to put food on the table, a roof over the head. Maybe somebody older adult who's alone and just needs to feel needed. So the job of supporting Eric comes with a house in a nice neighborhood, a strong enticement, hopefully, for our recruitment plan. But with the microboard watching out for Eric and the structure of the organization being flexible enough to become whatever Eric needs in the future, we feel well poised to have him successfully supported throughout his life. But planning is the key to success. It all started with describing the right environment and the needed supports for Eric and seeing the various ways those things can be accomplished. Some options will fall away for one reason or another. Others start to look stronger. And we kind of thought through the COVID experience, were our plans sustainable? What would our microboard need to become in those kind of circumstances? And that's part of the ongoing evaluation that we need to revisit and reconsider things as things change in the future. No one has a crystal ball. No one has all the answers, but that gives you an idea of what we are doing.
Cheryl, wow, to you too. The forward thinking, the forward planning, the support family structure, and as I mentioned to you once before, the microboard concept. I'm anticipating you're going to have some questions about that because I just think it's brilliant. I absolutely love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Marta, now we get to hear your story.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Marta Malone. I work with the Center for Healthy Aging, and I have spent the last 15 years in education and research around healthy aging and caregiving. And in my personal life, I'm a single mother of 2 adult children. My daughter, Marissa, who is 31. I'm actually here with her in New York right now. She had some surgery, so I'm being caregiver mama. And then my son, Michael, call him Mikey, who is 41 and was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia when he was 19. So Mikey has lived with me in the beginning. and then in state-run group homes and private group homes. And most recently, he has moved to independent living. In the beginning, when I first heard Mikey's diagnosis, I kind of freaked out. I had never known anyone that had any kind of mental illness, especially schizophrenia. All I had in my head, unfortunately, was that stereotypical movie, Sybil, something really scary. And I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. I was a single mom at the time. And yeah, I remember having him at the house, and I was literally sleeping with one eye open just because I was scared. I had to become educated about the disease and dispel all of those untruths and those myths about mental illness and schizophrenia in general that are very prevalent. My family was super, super supportive. And as it turned out, my dad had a friend that had a son that has schizophrenia, and he was a peer counselor at the Nevada Adult Mental Health, NAMS. And so Joe was the one that helped me get Mikey into the NAMS system. And that started our journey into supported living. That was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do. Like, wow, it was years ago and I'm still emotional. Putting my son in a group home. I didn't know. Wow, I don't know what this came from. Sorry. Anyways, it was really hard. I felt guilty. I'm his mom. I should be able to take care of him. And but in the long run, is the best thing that I could have done. So he has been in and out of the group home situations. He's been in these horrible state-run group homes. He's been in really quality and great private group homes, and it's the whole journey, I have to say, has been challenging. Now he has moved into an independent living situation with supports around him to ensure that he's taking his medications and can, is getting food. We've been down this path before, and it was not great. But he was also not as stable as he is now. He has been stable on his medications for some time. And so we're looking forward to this being more successful than it has been in the past. So things that I have learned, it's tough. I just have to be the mom, the guardian. I did get guardianship over Mikey, and that was really helpful in some cases. So that was an important step. Just being there, being the mom, being the guardian, being the advocate, meeting every support team person, the case managers that come and go pretty quickly, the service coordinators and all the support team. I am the squeaky wheel, and I want them to know my son's story, my son and my son's story, and know me, so that and I always make in-person meetings via Zoom sometimes when through COVID, but so that they know my face and know my number and know that I'm going to be there and be another support for him. The resources for people living with mental illness are limited, and so it's hard to find placement a lot of times. I will go and visit the group homes that they have him slotted for when one closes for one reason or another. And there's been some times where I haven't been really happy about where he's needed to go, but because there's no other place, I just make sure that the people at the group home know me again, and that I can get him out of there as quickly as possible. So I'm just being the squeaky wheel. So I will be happy to answer any questions and share the trials and tribulations and the high points of this journey that I've had for the past 20 years with my son.
Roberta, thank you. And don't ever apologize for emotions because this is an emotional topic. I mean, it tugs at the heartstrings. All of our panelists do the very, very best they can and have done well. And you too, as the squeaky wheel advocate, navigator, guardian. I also like that you brought up the peer counselor who actually was a connector for you. So it's finding those connectors as well as we move forward. And I want to go on to our fourth panelist, and please remember, put your questions in the chat box. I see we've got a field of professionals that have joined us today, and Jody, who's not only a professional, but has a son. So I'm hoping that I'm going to hear more from our folks out there for options for community support. Our final panelist is Carol. Carol, tell us about your daughter.
Okay, my name's Carol Matrone, and I too am a single mom, and I applaud all the women before me for their tenacity and perseverance and picking up the pieces when it all falls apart and putting it back together. Not the way we hoped maybe, but kind of moving forward. My daughter Maria is 31 years old. She has probably some of the most intense cerebral palsy. She's in that body, trapped in that body with a very bright mind. So when Maria was 18, graduating high school, and was able to continue schooling through special ed services, she was like, why would I do that? She had no desire to continue back at school. And she expresses these things from her wheelchair on a Dynavox communication device. At that time with switches, now she's eye gaze proficient, both on communicating and driving her chair. So to say that she's max assist for all of her activities of daily living is an accurate descriptor of her. But that's never thwarted her desire to want to be independent. And at 18 said, okay, graduated, now when am I moving out? And I was like, so we explored services through the regional center, and it took about 2 years before she was placed in her first group home. No perfect world out there. We only remained a few months because the incompatibility of the roommates, I didn't feel the situation was safe. So she returned home, much to her displeasure, and we waited again for another couple of years for another placement. All the whole time with her advocating, why am I still home? Why can't I move out? And I recognize that, the regional center, if you have different grades of acuity, your wait can often be longer. Now you might say, well, maybe they're waiting for the right configuration of roommates, but from my experience, that doesn't seem to be the case. So she again moved in another couple of years, was placed again, and through some health conditions that she acquired, and anxiety, and we had to, she eventually got a G-tube, which she had was able to keep at bay for many years, and she had to leave that group home at that time. Again, regrouped, got it together, and then Maria moved into her own home, independent, rented home. She was going to have a configuration of roommates, but it never kind of happened. Then COVID hit, then the housing crisis hit, then they raised the rent to where she wouldn't be able to, with the Desert Regional Center assisted funds, remain in the home. At that juncture, which is a year ago, October, Betty's Village here in Las Vegas opened. And Betty's Village is a community that was built by Opportunity Village. It's an innovative, inclusive community which sets up independent apartments. And there are 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 4-bedroom units. So you can have that traditional 4-bedroom group home, or a 2-bedroom, have it just a roommate, or an independent apartment of your own, which is the route that we went. The roommate situation never really worked appropriately. I'd like to think that there's some forethought and some planning from agencies that says, wow, we think these 4 individuals would work together, but we've not found that to be the case. So Maria relates best to her caregivers and kind of connects best with her caregivers. So for her, living independently with the ISLA support, which is the intensive living arrangement support through Desert Regional Center. She has a combination of personal care attendants and then the rehabilitation side with the ISLA that support her 24/7 care. So she's been here 1 year. One moment. She's thrived here. They have, it's kind of like independent living meets an assisted living facility. They've got activities not only for the residents who are, physically or mentally challenged. They have it for the non-disabled individuals who live here. And it's kind of like allies for the disability community. So there's 74 units. It's a mixture of disability and a mixture of non-disabled individuals, but everybody's got a mindset for improving the lives of everybody living here. It's a gated community. They have 24/7 security. It feels like a little island of safety here. And when I first laid eyes on it, was like, wow, I want to live here. So about December, I put my name on the waiting list. The place from June till December filled immediately. And several months later, I was able to secure an apartment here. So Maria, because of her level of acuity and needs, will never be 100% independent, but she feels extremely well supported here. I kind of look in on her once in a while. She comes and visits me. So it's been a great kind of win-win for both of us. And I'm hoping that she'll continue to thrive here. She's very active participant in her community. She's a rider athlete with Team Hoyt here, where she's participated in numerous marathons. She just is full of life and getting out there and doing things. So that's our story, and not a perfect world. Certainly not a perfect situation here. The caregiver crisis we have right now, where people, because of the low rate of pay, are not taking caregiver jobs. The constant, revolving door of caregivers has presented challenges, but for the most part, it's been a fairly successful placement for her. We hope it will continue. So.
Thank you so much, Carol. And what a rich panel we have with a variety of circumstances and solutions that have been shared. I find myself encouraged, because the difference between caring for elders is the journey is, if you're blessed, 20 years, but those caring for youth who are now aging with conditions, it doesn't go away. It's a longer journey and requires tremendous strategy, which all 4 of you have clearly shared with us. And I mean, it's very powerful. We do have a question in the chat, Jane. Is it okay if I read it?
Go for it.
All right. I told Jane I might bump in, but we actually have two good ones. And but I want to jump to Jody's, and then we're going to come back to Marcia's because they're really they're very intense questions. And Jody asks, how do you fund independent living? How do you find good homes if your son has several disabilities, cerebral palsy, a feeding tube, profoundly deaf, which there's a crossover in our panelists? Are you having difficulty finding caregivers to come in for your young adult? So those are big questions, but let me ask all of you the first part of that. How do you fund independent living? What tools do you have for our question? Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, well, you know, I guess my thing would be that my daughters access the regional center, Desert Regional Center. We're down here in Southern Nevada. So Desert Regional Center provides the waiver for, you know, for the monthly stipend towards the apartment rent. But your loved ones, SSI, Maria has SSI, is turned over, that along with the regional center funds. And then we also have that array of personal care attendant funds, of personal care attendant services, because my daughter has a G-tube and has those supports that need to be in place. So in addition to the personal care attendant services here at Betty's Village, they also have a nurse on contract that, because my daughter receives, trying not to use the acronyms, ISO services, intermediary service organization services with the personal care attendant services, to be able to provide her feedings as well in the absence of the personal care attendant service. So it's kind of a little bit like the old Chinese food menu, you know, some from column A, some from column B, some from column C, and they put it all together. And then your individual has those supports and services. Maria's G-tube fed, so she receives back from all those funds coming together a stipend or allowance of $45 a week, which she has to buy her personal need items out of there. So I hope
you've patched in, yeah, you've put the puzzle pieces together. As have
that's
this,
for our family. Yeah, that's
as have the systems, because there are a lot of puzzle pieces and there are resources. Sometimes there's waiting lists for that, and we might ask about that as well. But I would like to throw it open also to all the panelists to ask a quick question. We'll circle back to Jody's second part of her question. But this one's from Marcia. For all panelists, what is the most important thing to consider when looking for independent options? Can we roll back to Mary and start with you, Mary, on that one? Did I lose Mary? There you are.
There. Well, the first thing I want to say is safety. But she wasn't safe in that one situation, and it didn't change her idea or our idea that she should be independent.
Well, let me add to that question then. You got her, though, later into a gated apartment that
Right.
happened to have the lower cost, the Section 8. How did you do that?
I had heard from my other daughter that one of her friends was living there and paying less money. I didn't know it was Section 8. I just went into the apartment complex and asked them, and they put her on a waiting list. I didn't know what it was for. And I didn't know it was Section 8. I knew it was for income reduced rent. And then about a year later, they called and said it was ready, and she went in and did all the Section 8 paperwork.
And that's
Um,
worked.
Yeah, and so yeah, I mean, cost is a huge thing. When her dad retired, she ended up, I don't know, changing from SSI to Social Security or something. And she also gets Medicare now. And she gets a little bit of money to help with rent from the regional center, and then she works. So it's still a struggle financially, but it's not terrible. You know, I mean, as long as she watches what she buys and doesn't look at Amazon too often.
The never-ending trap, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. That actually was very helpful, and patience in getting on some of the lists to go into those kinds of situations is good. Marta, what is the most important thing to you for finding independent living? Which you shared with us your struggles across the board. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it wasn't, but the goal was to give the sense of independence to your son.
Yeah. And number one is, does my son like it?
Ooh.
Yeah, he had a really good friend. Actually, he passed away from COVID, but and he really wanted to continue to be roommates with this person, and so that was always kind of an important thing. And then other than that, again, safety was a big thing, and the environment, because my son can be very, if somebody approached him with something bad to do, you know, if it was drugs or whatever, he might, go, okay. And so trying to keep him out of an environment that, is conducive to that. And it's a little bit why he's loving that he's getting he's in his own apartment right now. And, the neighborhood is not great because it's low income. It's also Section 8. And so, we just keep talking to him, and he does have support around him, to help with his meds and his shopping and, those things. But just keeping him from having someone say, oh, I don't have a place to stay tonight. Can I come in and stay with you? Because he's got the biggest heart in the world and he will let them stay. And we had that happen in the past, and oh my gosh, it was really not good. But again, he's more stable and staying on his meds. So as long as that happens, and we just keep talking to him and reminding him that he can say no, it's okay. So that's kind of what I look for in our situation.
Yep. Safety, and I'm seeing a common thread here, but Cheryl, earlier on in your sharing of your personal story, we learned that you're actually setting him up in his own independent living situation and the micro board approach. Can you elaborate on that for us a little bit?
Well, yeah, he's got his own apartment. It's part of our home. But it's a way to separate him and his things and his belongings, to give him that sense of independence and to make him responsible to do chores and take care of that space. Having him be alone is what we considered not the option. He doesn't have the ability to call for help, that sort of thing. And so on a lot of safety issues, that was a concern. But one of the questions had been, are you having difficulty finding people? And we've had really good luck hiring people with disabilities themselves. And so his SLA aide, his supported living aide, is legally blind. He's been with us, I think, 6-7 years continuously, and he has fought to keep his job. He has one client, that's Eric. And so, yeah, we've had to make some accommodations for him because he is legally blind. And sometimes the help that he gives and helping Eric get dressed and the color coordination and stuff is not always right on, but he has been very reliable. We hire people with learning disabilities and older people who are on disability benefits themselves, that they can cook cookies and they can clean a small apartment and they can take him on the bus routes, and they probably use them themselves. I mean, there's just a lot of really good reasons to hire somebody with disabilities that match up with our son's needs. He needs a lot of prompting. He's ambulatory, so there's not lifting or anything like that involved. And he's not doing any meds particularly. So there's, you just try to find the right fit. But I would
How,
look
Cheryl?
at, huh?
Sorry to interrupt you, but that's again an innovative strategy. So the idea of individuals who also have a need, not just looking for somebody that's fully independent and coming in
They stay
to
with
provide
you
that.
forever.
How do you find those individuals? How have you found folks when you've had to bring, where is that resource pool?
Well, they're often looking for work at voc rehab, or they're looking at work, at regular employment centers. So it's people that we know in the community. Your community becomes really valuable to finding those leads, I think. It's the older lady around the block. It's the kid that grew up with your kids but struggled in school and has struggled to maintain employment. But Eric's needs are, gosh, I need a peer, help me do a little shopping, help me, with my errands, or go to a movie, out to eat, something like that. Some of his needs are pretty simple. So it's not been too difficult to match up. That's a really reliable pool. When you can find a match, you may have some accommodations you need to make. We added lighting to our house because our legally blind SLA aide can't see well in any lighting, but lighting helps. So our microboard is a concept that came out of Tennessee, by the way. So we just modeled, actually, we had a replication program here in the state of Nevada for us for a while to kind of create nonprofits, small individual nonprofits around those unique needs of their family member, and the board basically takes over a business responsibilities. We have insurance that we need to keep covered to have the microboard covered for any for state provided services that we might want to deliver now or in the future. And actually, he is working. He is employed about 30 hours a week as a scanning clerk, working in for a disability organization, Disability Resources. And so he gets SSDI benefits. His dad's retired, and so he gets Medicare, Medicaid eligible as well. And so it's a combination of those government resources and family and community resources that you pull together.
Cool. I see Jody's got her hand up, so she's going to go verbal for us. And thank you, Jody, because you have great questions. Bring them up.
When Cheryl was talking, I heard her, you mentioned your son is in an apartment attached to your house or on your property? Because I was wondering about that. We have a casita that we built in the back of our house that my mom's currently living in, but we wondered if he could live there and we could get the supports there. Is that what I heard you say?
Well, our son's apartment is really still connected. We're a single family home. We can't change that in our zoning, but it is closed off enough that he has his own space. So it's really the master bedroom and bath that's been taken over. We've done some modifications in there to build a kitchen for him, and he's got his computer and his TV and all his important things like his radio and his microwave and stuff, so that he is separate. There isn't any commingling. That's always something the state's looking at, is who is mom and dad supporting in some way. Also, we have rec controls, his rent will never go up unless we as a group decide that his rent needs to go up. We've made small increases. I think he started out at $400 a month. He's up to $500 a month. As costs go up, that may have to increase, but we feel like we've got some nice rent controls. They're not going to outprice him out of our home. It's just a matter of bringing the supports here. So I don't know. That
So what,
answers your question.
well, to tag on to her question, because she's got the casita, and you just created a casita-like location in your home that is now deemed for the microboard process and the supportive services that come to him to be independent. Is that
He
right?
pays rent. He does pay rent.
Okay.
A room and board, it is something that he's obligated under contract. We have a rental agreement with him.
And Jody, did that answer your question? I want to be sure. Okay. We have another question that has come up from Anna Marie. And it says, Cheryl, are you planning to donate your home, or how does that work for a long-term plan?
All right, so our microboard will be the property managers of our home. And so they'll be collecting the rent and maintaining the property for Eric, and we can lease it to them for 99 years. So it's a lease. It doesn't go to the microboard, the nonprofit. Anything in a microboard has to be when it dissolves. If Eric passed away and we didn't need it anymore, then the assets that the microboard has needs to go to another nonprofit. We didn't want our home to be in that mix, so the microboard rents our home. Or actually, there's a contract for property management of our home. Eric rents in our home, so he has his own bills. And he can, the house is paid off luckily right now. So it's property tax, garbage, the utilities, water, and those kind of things that his rent needs to be able to cover. And then after that, he's got his own food and shopping, and he has, we also plan to leave him a car so that whoever is working with him always has transportation. If there's an emergency or whatever. It won't be a brand new car, it'll be a used car. Hopefully we can still get gas in it at the time that he needs to have gas. But at any rate, there will be some things that are going to be for Eric's, for the benefit of Eric, that stay with him here. And then we don't lose the property. We just have that be able to go into our, to other family members or whatever as Eric no longer needs it.
So you created a business entity,
has
and
to be
and the business is Eric.
Yeah.
Which this is this little company around him, which is very, very creative. It's I find the resources that everybody has brought forward today in this conversation. We're getting close to the closing time, but we're not quite there yet. So I would like to ask any of the folks dialed into this call. We do have several agency professionals. We've heard about Betty's Village. We've heard about the need for the supported living arrangements. But is there anything similar to what Las Vegas has done with the Betty's Village concept in other parts of the state? Do I have any listeners in with us today that might know of that? Too
This
quiet.
is Cheryl. I think Justin Hope was exploring. I think there's some groups that are exploring it. It's a business entity, so it has to cover its costs and pay for its staff and be able to be staffed. So. But I think, isn't that right, Marcia, that Justin Hope, or maybe it was Corey, anyone who might know how far along into their exploration. It's great when something like that, an option opens up. That was one of our concerns, is can we count on that? We've seen a lot of group homes come and go, and so it's kind of like, what do we do if they give you a 30-day notice? That they're no longer going to be provide services for you, that sort of, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So,
That's what Marta ran into over the course of her journey as well, you know, with the mental illness management component. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Jane. Jane, do you have any wrap up or anything else we'd like to bring to the call?
Well, we heard a lot of great information, and I know that anyone listening to the call can get additional information if you have additional questions that weren't answered today, if you could send them to nvcaregiverscoalition.com. We'll make sure that one of our panelists can join in answering that question and get it back to you. So we want to thank our panelists, Mary, Cheryl, Marta, and Carol, for sharing your stories and for sharing all this great information. I want to thank our sponsor, AARP, for sponsoring this event today, and all the other individuals that joined us. Most of all, I just want to really thank everyone for taking the time out of their day to join us, learn more about what's available for children and youth with special healthcare needs in the state of Nevada. So thank you again, and we will see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you.